Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It is Tuesday on another beautiful day. This this summer has been pretty amazing. Summer weather-wise and all around. Definitely one of the best summers I've experienced, and I hope this weather keeps up until February. That would be amazing. It's about 11:43 here. It's Tuesday, so yeah, school starts up this week, so I have a few days off and yeah, it's a good time. So I went to Bull Moose. I think it was last week. I think it was, yeah. And they they redid. I usually go used to go to the Bull Moose in Waterville, Maine. That's my favorite shop. But I noticed things were kind of changing, and the titles seem to be diminishing as far as titles that are a part of the horror exploitation world, which is my favorite genre of all time. And that's kind of where I try to spend most of my money. You know, I like to take the deep dives, get the deep cuts. And especially this past year, I've been really discovering tons of movies that I had never seen before. I buy, one of the movies, the last haul that I had, well, I should say, Bull Moose in Waterville. Backtrack a second here. Their titles seem to be getting less and less, and it was really disheartening. And I'm not sure what was going on. They used to have just an amazing selection. I've bought so many movies there over the last couple of years, especially this past year. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I saw the tide change when I actually saw it when it was announced earlier this year that Best Buy was going to be kind of gutting their entire physical media, including the physical, like the actual physical stores, the physical media, but then also their website. And that was kind of this turn for the worst, I felt, where maybe physical media will go away completely. And that it for me, it's an amazing period as a collector, but I felt like it's not going to last very long. And so that happened, and I noticed this trend of where suddenly I was not able to find as many awesome titles anymore. And I started going to the Bangor Bull Moose, and I saw that their selection was 10 times better. So I started going there. But I had a gig up in Waterville a couple of weeks ago that was close to Bull Moose, so I stopped in there since I was there. And the whole shop is all redone, and I was amazed because now they have these whole other sections set up, about two or three different rows of Blu-rays and 4Ks of the boutique section, they call it, boutique labels. And that's all, the boutique label thing is basically, you have Severin and Blue Underground, Mono Cabra. And I was amazed, and they have tons of all of these great obscure exploitation titles. So I went there not knowing that, and I bought some amazing films. And then I went there again, I think it was last week, and I bought another bunch of great films. Most of them I have not seen, but I still buy movies that I saw when I was a kid, or I might have seen in passing, and I always really loved it, or I liked it. One of the movies I bought that they had up there that I had seen a bunch of times when I was a kid and was one of my favorite movies was the classic American Ninja, put out by Canon. Canon was a real kind of trashy label back in the 80s that put out all of these kind of ninja movies that were just terrible but amazing. And that was one of my movies that was part of my diet, and I bought that on Blu-ray. Crazy. I mean, to think that that would get a release like that. It's just amazing. And they had the sequels too. There's two of them. I think there's three. And they had some of the Sho Kosugi movies, Revenge of the Ninja. So yeah, it's crazy. But I bought the rest of the films I bought were all movies that I'd never seen before. Probably the aspect I love the most about my just buying movies cold, and even doing this channel is just talking about the experience of seeing a movie that is just a killer experience, having that killer experience when you first see it, and a lot of movies I've never seen, and so I just bought the one of the collections I bought, which actually has two movies, is this incredible movie, I Miss You, Hugs and Kisses. This was put out by Severin. This is an amazing package. Again, I mean, look at the artwork. It's just so incredible. It was put out by Severin. There's actually two films on here. This movie was actually banned. It was part of the video nasty movement in the 80s. And I've talked about that whole situation before, but the video nasties basically was a thing of where you had a whole bunch of these horror exploitation movies that were put on this list. It basically started in England, and during that time in England, there was a lot of elected officials that were very conservative, and there were all of these kinds of censorship-oriented boards that were formed in England, and they basically took it upon themselves to ban a whole bunch of these movies because of gratuitous sex and gratuitous violence and the subject matter. So there was a list called the Video Nasties that basically these movies were banned, like complete censorship, and they were not shown. They were like you could it was a crime to actually see these movies or to get them. And so this went on for a long time, and it swept across England, swept across Europe and U.S. The U.S. here, where a lot of those movies weren't, you couldn't get them. And then the VHS, it was at the tail end of the Grindhouse era, and then the VHS, you had the late 70s, mid 70s to about the early 80s when the Grindhouse thing was really huge. The drive-in, the movie theaters that were showing, multiple movies all at once, and they were specializing in all things exploitation. Especially 42nd Street in New York City. That was the kind of the mecca of all of this great and wonderful trash. But and there were theaters all around the world. That was how people saw them, and you would pay a cheap ticket, and you would see about 2 or 3 movies in one setting, and they would all be these super low budget sleazy movies. An amazing time. And so, but then those movies were all banned, and then you had in the early 80s, VHS came about. And so a lot of these people who were into these movies started basically making these bootleg tapes of they somehow got prints of these movies or copies of a copy of a copy, and they started releasing these movies. And then that grew to where, when the VHS thing came out, a lot of those titles that were banned became the most sought out. And then now these movies are getting almost 40, 50 years later, these movies are all getting releases on Blu-ray and 4K, and it's just like insane. And arguably, which I think is true, the audience, like myself, people who like these sick and disgusting movies, has grown. A lot of it's due because of the internet. And, another bonus of the internet, one of the positives when there are so many negatives. And again, I had never seen this movie. I was just blown away by the cover. I just thought the artwork, it was directed by Murray Markowitz. One of his other films is also included on here. I'm going to be doing another show. I did not know that there were 2 films on here. But super cool, super amazed by it. This movie came out in 1978, and it's a wild movie. It's super violent. It's super gory, but it's very different than what I thought it would be. I mean, look at this. I mean, again, it's got the slipcover, amazing artwork, just amazing, incredible. And this is the actual DVD. There's some really awesome special features on here. Severin just knocks it out of the park. Recommendation for Mercy, which is the other Murray. Uh, this, yeah, it's got, so this, when I bought it, I thought it only had the one movie, I Miss You, Hugs and Kisses. But then when I was actually watching that movie, I realized, oh wait, there's a whole nother movie in here, Recommendation for Mercy, which was on both of these were directed by Murray Markowitz, which I, first time hearing of his name and first time seeing any of his films, and I'm like, these movies are awesome. I finished Recommendation for Mercy the other day, and so I'm going to be doing a review on that also. But amazing and a beautiful collection. And his films are interesting because they're based on true crimes or true life things that happen. And I Love You, Hugs and Kisses is such a wild story. It's basically about this couple that are, they were, and this husband in particular, who was a millionaire. They were both very, very wealthy people. And in the root or the heart of their marriage or their relationship, they both really hated each other. And the story of this movie is basically where the husband has this whole like elaborate plot to get his wife killed. But while that's happening, his wife is also doing the same thing. She is also trying to figure out how she can kill him and get his empire. It's wild, and it's a true story. And he was he was eventually convicted of these crimes. His wife was killed, and he was convicted of the crimes. But then, during the court trial, it came out that he had a plot to kill his own lawyer. Also, like, I mean, just an insane story, true story. And the other film that's on here is also based on a true story as well. And again, this movie is it's really a great kind of character study. Uber low budget. It's super sleazy. And it's really violent. Like, there are some scenes in this movie where like, there's not a ton of violence per se, but when there is violence in this movie, it's brutal. It's super brutal, and I can see why. This movie was banned. It does have a scene of where there is necrophilia. There is some brutal kills in this movie, but it's really great. I mean, it's really well done. I was surprised. Because sometimes with horror exploitation movies, the writing's not so great or the acting isn't so great, but this actually has a high level delivery about it. Like, the acting's actually really great. The writing is really great. It's a really riveting story. So yeah, I was totally blown away by this movie, and the transfer of this film on Blu-ray is just gorgeous, just gorgeous. Yeah, totally. And sometimes that happens when you see. I've come across a lot of movies that were on the video nasties list, and sometimes a lot of those movies are just awesome. But sometimes I see that, well, some of the movies that I have seen that were on that list were maybe a little bit overly hyped, and it actually helped a lot of these movies, obviously, in the long run, to for people to search out to see it, because it's this taboo, very controversial movie. And sometimes the movies are a little bit maybe overly hyped, but this movie is actually really great. Not only is it a really well done movie, and it's really trashy, it's uber low budget. It's a riveting story. It's hard to believe that this is a true story. But the kills, when it comes to the violent nature of this movie, it's pretty freaking brutal. So I can see why this movie was incredibly controversial. A movie like this I don't think would really be able to be made today, because of some of the situations that are in. But it's awesome. I can't recommend this enough. and just gorgeous packaging. And it was a pretty good price. I got it for like 28 bucks, but two movies and a bunch of special features. Murray Markowitz, he's a director I never heard of before, so now I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled. I know he has. I think he did a documentary, and then he also did another film. But I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled for him for more of his work. But really awesome discovery. One of I was pretty captivated by this movie, and it was, again, I'd never seen it before. I never heard of it before. I was just like, wow, the artwork. The first thing that grabbed my attention was the artwork. I was just like, that looks super cool. So, and then again, took a chance. Severin, Severin, just I feel like they can't do anything wrong these days. I think overall they're probably the best and most prolific boutique label out there, putting out all of these amazing underground films. Super cool. So yeah, can't recommend it enough. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.